welcome to good morning. Welcome to our February meeting of the Audit and Assurance Committee. We're now in open session. Can I welcome those who are joining virtually, in particular Alex, our Chief Exec, and hopefully shortly Jill Lewis as well. Good morning, everybody. If we can just deal with apologies for absence. None have been received. Declarations of interest, again, none have been received by members of the committee, unless there's anything that colleagues need to raise at this point. No? Okay, thank you very much. Item 1.4, the draft minutes of the Audit and Assurance Committee meeting on the 17th of October last year. If I can just deal with them for accuracy first. So I take pages 1 and 2 together. Pages 3 and 4. Pages 5 and 6. Pages 7, 8 and 9. Are colleagues happy to approve the minutes? As I was there, I'll approve them in the absence of Jill. So, yeah, so the minutes are approved. If I can move to item 1.5, the action log from the meeting on the 17th of October. Again, the action log is there for noting. Any queries from you, Tina, on that? Yeah, so
yeah, so in terms of the bursary audit that services have suggested that they were conducting, so on the 9th of January I followed that up with the Director of Finance and Shared Services and was told that he was meeting an internal audit on the Friday of that week. I followed up twice again since to request the sort of output of that report and still not had anything back. So I think it's probably that I need to write formally to him and request that information. And I don't know if your internal audit teams would be able to connect to understand if that would be completed.
Happy to ask them.
So colleagues, happy to note the action log. Thank you very much. Matters arising, if I can just go back to the minutes to check if there are any matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting that are covered elsewhere on this morning's agenda. Do you know anything from you? No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 2. Item 2.1, matters for consideration, the annual accounts plan, and Rhiannon, I'll hand to you. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you, Martin.
I apologize. I think this paper was added linked to the admin controls. So apologies if we've not read it, but I'll just try and summarise now what we're going to do here. This is just a paper we bring each year to the Audit and Assurance Committee just to set our plan for year-end closure. I guess the aim is to give the committee assurance that we're able to do what we need to do to a high enough standard by the statutory deadlines. This somehow is going to be the 5th set of accounts we've completed. The time is going to be flown by, but we've put a significant amount of work into our processes and procedures over this time, and we've produced our accounts on time to a positive audit report over that period. So essentially, we have just refined our plan this year to make improvements. There's no major accounting changes that we need to take into account on HAW, so I'm not going to make any major changes to what we've done in the past, which I guess does give some assurance. There are a few areas in the report I would like to draw attention to, if that's okay. Firstly, I have mentioned in terms of the timing of the accounts in the annual report. Committee will recall historically NHS Wales has had to produce submit unaudited accounts by the end of April, and then audited around the end of May. But during COVID, that was extended slightly by a couple of weeks, just to take a couple of different working practices and different scrutiny that we've had to do during COVID. The draft annual accounts were issued by Welsh Government in December, and the timetable assumed a similar sort of deadline this year, the middle of June, we're aiming for. But subsequently, this paper being written, Welsh Government have indicated Audit Wales have asked for extended deadline up to the end of July. So that essentially means we have 1 month to produce the accounts and then 3 months of the audit. And perhaps I'll give Helen an opportunity to come in later if we need to on that. It does have some implications for HAW, and this has been acknowledged across NHS Wales. I think there was some concern on the extended deadline. Just a few issues in terms of technical accounting, that we have many estimates in the accounts which we base our figures on. Potentially some of those estimates will become actuals now within a 3 months period. So I think across Wales we look at whether what sort of assurance we need on what's going to be done on those, how much extra audit work is going to put a place on that. There's an issue organisationally, and we're going to have to rearrange our audit committees and board, and possibly difficulty doing that towards the end of July. It is a holiday period, and if people are out and about enjoying themselves, relaxing perhaps. And there's an issue on the workforce. I think it does have an impact on our staff. Extended audit period does run into our new year reporting period, so there's some concerns that has been raised across where it's not just for us, but so it is an idea to extend this and just keep up to date with proposals really in terms of what we're going to come back to. And Helen, so I don't know if I put you on the spot, is there any update on that, or is it still the end of July is the aim?
I think there's a lot going on in Audit Wales at the moment, and we are currently assessing where we are, and we are liaising with the NHS staff and Welsh Government. We are due to issue a letter shortly which explains more detail about the situation. And that will come out hopefully this week or next week. We're tackling with quite a lot of things this year. We are behind schedule with our audits. The local government audit deadline was pushed back until the end of January. We managed to certify 23 out of 32 of those local government audits, but there are those remaining 9 which are still ongoing, which is impacting on our audit resource in Wales in general. Some were because of late submission of accounts, but there's issues were raised as well. We've also got the impact of ISO 315 revised coming on board. It's a big change in our audit approach. So we're being a bit behind schedule, and also the additional work that we need to undertake as a result of that ISO revised. We need to undertake more detailed risk assessments at our planning stage. We're just kind of working out how that's going to play through at the moment. And that more detailed risk assessment directly relates to the design and implementation of our audit testing. So we can't, as in previous years, kind of set off on some audit testing of expenditure alongside the planning. We need to identify these risks of material station first, from which the audit plan therefore falls out. So at the moment we are looking at an end of July deadline. That is all Wales. So we know that HIW is less complex than other NHS bodies. We know, you produce a good set of accounts on time. You haven't got the impact of the King Premier evaluation of the NHS estate this year, and also the IFRS 16, has a little impact on it because we've only got the one building space. So with all that kind of, taken in the mix, we are hopeful that we can stick to more or less a normal schedule for HIW, but I can't promise that at the moment until we've worked everything through. So what I can say is that we'll keep you updated and understand the complexities and reservations with the business as well. But it won't be that the audit will be 3 months. We just need to try and work out whether you go first and then we move on to someone else. We're not going to be on the side or working with you for 3 months without audit. So I hope that was a little bit of context and background on things, and I wish we could be more definite with an answer, but we're still working through that and hopefully within the next
we are on, and then I'll bring Jill in, because Jill's got a hand.
Yeah, just I suppose I guess by now we would have been considered an interim visit, which is when that identification of risk should be done, so it doesn't fall in that sort of year-end testing period. So at the moment we don't have any plan for an interim visit to undertake that work.
Okay, so as I said, we're still finishing off last year's work, so we're trying to get through that. All our staff, or should I say, our more qualified staff, have now been trained in the new audit approach that finished last week. So now we can turn our focus on planning with Martin and the team, when we can be able to undertake that planning. I know Helen is actually kicking off with a few things this week. as well as in the audit approach, we've got all our documentation has been revised as well, so we need to, and that's driven by audit quality standards. So we need to, it's kind of like the perfect storm of everything coming together, and we need to tackle that over the next month. A lot of our planning and interim work is undertaken on a piecemeal basis, so we can pick up and do things, you know, you'll need to be busy as well, so we will work closely with that.
Thanks. Jill, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think most of the things that I was going to ask have already been referred to, and obviously I understand that it's an all Wales issue, and that we'll try and get HEIW done. But I think if I was there in the room, I would want to express, I guess, disappointment, a little bit of disappointment in terms of the ISA 315 is not sudden. It's been heralded for a while. We've talked about it at the Audit Committee for some time, and I would like to have thought that there was more planning done to make sure that that we were prepared for that. So I accept that you know, we are where we are, as it were, but is the problem in Audit Wales lack of resources, lack of people, or planning, I guess? And when is it likely to catch up, Helen? Because I note that Dave Thomas is coming. We're trying to arrange an Audit Committee, Wales Audit Committee Chairs meeting for him to come and talk about the impact of 315. But people have been working on this for some time. It feels to me just a little bit late.
We have taken a lot of comparison work for ISO 315. We've had a dedicated team within Audit Wales working on that, working on the audit documentation and the training materials. So it's not that we're not ready for it as such. I think it's the backlog primarily of the work, the audit work that has been undertaken over the last few months with the delays in local government, with an all Wales teams as well, you know, for those audits that have been delayed down West Wales and in North Wales, our South Wales staff have been pulled onto those because those are the priority. So we are behind where we would normally be for this time of year. We'd normally start planning in January. We're only just now tackling our grant work. And I said there's quite a few of those local government bodies still being audited as well. So it's not so much we're not prepared for the ISA 315 work. We knew it was coming, but a lot of our staff are still involved in other audits at the moment, which is preventing us kicking off on that more detailed planning, which we know will probably take a little more time.
So it's not a lack of people, that's not the issue.
We have lost quite, not lost, but there has been quite a lot of staff turnover in the last 18 months as well. So we are dealing with that, but I know we're not alone in that respect throughout the audit world. But we have had quite a lot of recruitment. Indeed, there are interviews going on this week. So hopefully we should get some new people through the door to help further that as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jill. Martin.
Yeah, thank you. So we work very well with all this, so I'm sure we can. It's just it does have a little bit of extra pressure. The only thing I was going to mention, our report's okay. Within section 8, I just cover some of the key financial and technical risks that we have to work through. The one I just pick up on really, I think, is it's into year-end cut-off testing, which probably has been in the news this year because of Betty Cadwalder, some issues there. Just essentially just means if anything's delivered after the 31st of March, it should be in next year's accounts. Basically, simple as that sounds. We have done a lot of work over the past few years designing processes to make sure that that's been done right, and we've got various reviews in place. We've done lots of communications with the business partners and our budget holders, so they must account for costs correctly. And we get actually lots of queries at the moment in terms of can I do this, kind of that, which is really a positive impact on my credibility bar asking the question. In terms of materiality, most of our significant expenditure areas are with other NHS organisations, universities, and quite often linked to specific core states. So the processes for those have been through lots of audit past year because of the value of them. So I'm hopeful, and I know there's robust processes in place for those. Obviously, we'll be part of the review this year, but it's not a significant issue or concern for me in terms of because of the process we've got in place and the materiality of where we are, that those smaller items which can often sort of drift into the wrong view. So that's the only one I was going to pick up on there. I'm more happy to take any other questions on the other issues.
Clear enough. Thank you, Martin. Tina?
You kind of answered one of my queries about the year-end cut-off. I know with Betsy Ward and some student contracts in the Education Committee, we were quite concerned with extended placements and the year-end cut-off cutting off for this year, but moving quite a substantial amount potentially into next year for placements. And I just wondered whether there has been some recognition of that and that's been incorporated as to what the deficit would be going forward into next year's budget. Or
I think we adopt the approach that I suppose when the activity happens is when we account for it. Now, as the board, we've not seen a significant issue about sort of extended no placements. I suppose it is something that we're constantly reviewing in terms of when the activity falls on which you should correctly be accounted for. So it's, I understand the point, but it's not a particular issue bigger than anything else that we already deal with constantly.
that's how we discussed it in the education committee. We were concerned because it might affect training places next year out of next year's budget. But the year-end cut-off will recognise. We've asked that question in the university.
We do a whole lot of detail on individual students allowed to make that analysis. And we have asked each team to identify these potential risk areas and what we've done to mitigate those, so we'll share those with all.
Committee's been asked to note the contents of the reports, which I'm sure we do. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 2.2, the internal audit progress report. What I'll do first is we take the internal audit reports on the performance management framework, the delegated budgetary control, and the strategic review commission of health professional education first, and then we'll do the audit plan afterwards.
If that's okay, Chair.
Yes, great.
I'll just say very briefly a few words around progress for this year. This is the paper on the agenda today, which I think is fairly self-explanatory. I'll just draw one thing out of it really, and that's we have a number of small performance measures where we look at how quickly we turn things around and how quickly we get management responses back to us. And you can see that one of those is dropped into red at the moment. In the wider scheme of things, it's fine. It doesn't prohibit us getting the reports through to the audit committee, so it's not a bigger issue. I guess it's just a little bit of timeliness about having that dialogue, get those management responses back, so we can get the reports over the line. But as I said, it looks red at the moment, but in the general scheme of things, it's not a huge issue. And then in terms of the plan for the rest of this year, good progress. A number of pieces of work ongoing at the moment, and then one final piece just to complete, which is the finance piece back end off at the end of this month. So no concerns and nothing to raise on that. Details on page 4 and 5. Some questions.
Tina, any questions on this?
I did have a question in relation to actual response to the turnaround because it's only 32%, isn't it?
It is. It's dropped down a little bit, but it's not in a particular area. I think sometimes the sort of wheels turning of the organisation take a little bit of priority on things when we know we still need the right deadline for the work. So as I said, it's something to flag, but it's not right.
Thanks. Jill?
Yeah, sorry. I'm finding it difficult occasionally to hear. So I may be asking on at the wrong place, but I think I noticed that the SLA arrangements piece of work is at the back end of February. Is there any reason why that's been pushed back, Paul?
Yeah, so I'll pick that one up, Jill. So
Oh,
we put the arrangements in place at the beginning of this year to have a regular SLA meeting. So we'd only had 2, I think. At the time, the review was suggested to be undertaken. So we just asked if we could go through another cycle of having a meeting, so there would be more to look at, more to audit. So it wasn't sort of just pushed the end of the year, it was actually considered that there would be more to look at, and then it would be more valuable in terms of the feedback on how we're running that.
okay, thanks.
Jill, anything else on this from you?
I don't think so, no. The management turnaround's been discussed, so that was all, thanks.
Thanks. Unless there's anything else, can I thank internal audit for the reports, particularly the levels of substantial assurance on 2 of them, and obviously reasonable assurance on the 3rd. It's good to see the progress being made. So unless there are any other questions, can I just ask on those before we move to the final item, if I can just ask committee to note the performance management final audit report, note the HEIW final budgetary control audit report, and to note HEIW strategic review of health professional education phase 2 report. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, can we just turn to the internal plan? Paul, thanks.
Yes, Chair, of course, yeah. So our plan for the year, this is for the just trying to find the so 1 second, so jump in there. Switching between these glasses and, and the screen, it takes a bit of time for the eyes to dilate. So the plan for the year is for 23-24, which is a risk-based plan, which means that we think about the risk facing the organisation, we take those into consideration and look at things that we might want to look at during the year in terms of governance arrangements, risk management and control arrangements. Part of the planning process that we've spoken with the executive team and a number of the individual executives also, and a number of the independent members to make sure that we're picking up any sort of concerns and things that might need to be mindful of putting the plan together. Detail of the plan is set out on page 9 and 10 of the document, and that shows the 11 years of work to do throughout next year. What I probably would say is, whilst we have that plan mapped out, we are looking to land reviews from now up until sort of March and April time of next year, and a lot of things can change in a period of time. So whilst we have the plan in place and presenting it today, I think we need to be mindful that risks change and the organisation moves. So we do retain that sort of degree of flexibility about what we might want to look at. So it might be that back in the year things change a little bit, just need to be wanted to raise that. The other component of the paper here today is the internal audit charter document, and that is the same document that you had last year as well. And what that explicitly does is it sets out the relationship between ourselves as the internal auditors and the organisation. So it sets out how we interact with each other, how we report, how, if there are disagreements, how we resolve those matters. So that sort of working relationship between them, and also sets out the degree of accountability. So what I'm asking for today is that the committee approve the plan, also approve the charter document, and note the proposed performance measures set out on page 11. They are similar to the ones that we've just discussed in the progress today. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Paul. That's really helpful. I'll just to see whether Tina and Jill have any questions. Tina, anything on the plan?
I'm just trying to get papers to be taken. So
Jill, is there anything you want to raise with internal audit on the proposed plan for 2023-24? I think Jill's just temporarily. Okay. Just looking at the volume of work that you've settled on. Obviously, I know that plan is put together in conversation with the team internally, and you said about there's always the risk that things may get affected by the ebb and flow of how things pan out over the next 12 months or so.
Yeah.
In your mind, having looked at the detail and context of the potential for where this work will settle in that course of the 12 months, that which you set out in quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4, there'll be those things I imagine where you would want to get them done because they're, say, urgent, but matters which probably would take a higher priority. Which ones are likely to slip? I know that does really depend on what things happen at what point of the course of the year. But the problem is when you spread things out over 4 quarters.
So I guess we're in February at the moment. We was talking about what will kick off in April time. As it stands at the moment, I think we're settled, and we try to have that dialogue with the management team to try and make sure that that the times that we're thinking about aligns with the time and the flow of work within the organisation as well, just to make sure that we're not suggesting doing something when half the team might be on leave, for example. It's just trying to work that through. So as it stands at the moment, I would say that there's nothing to suggest there will be any change, but we'll always have that dialogue with management and with the committee and flag things as things may or may not move.
Okay. It looks really robust. I mean, you're covering a huge amount of areas in the next 12 months. I think that would be clearly a very thoughtful piece of work. I'm sure those pieces will help the committee in its audit and assurance role. So thank you for that. So before we move on, can I ask the committee to, in addition to noting the internal audit progress report for assurance, approve the draft internal audit plan for 2023 as set out by Paul. Jill, happy to approve?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Tina. Yep, thank you very much. I've just been talking to Dad about the agenda. I'm conscious we've got Julie Rogers online, our Director of Workforce and OD. What I'm going to do, if it's okay with colleagues from Audit Wales, is just make a slight change to the agenda and ask whether, in terms of item 2.4, Julie, the HIW response to the Audit Wales Equalities Impact Assessment Report, if we could bring that forward now, I think that might just help you out, and following that we'll then go back to item 2.3. So Julie, can I hand over to you?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, colleagues. Good morning. Yeah, that does help me enormously. Thank you. I've got to shoot off to a meeting with lawyers. So thank you for asking me to attend today to talk about our response to the Equality Impact Assessment Report published by Audit Wales in September 22. I think the team have done a really good job in producing quite comprehensive paper, which gives you a feel for the work and the importance of this work within HEIW. We've also attached at Appendix 1 our management response. What you'll note from that is that prior to the publication of Audit Wales's report in September, the team were already actually heavily involved in looking at our equality impact assessment process in HIW. We'd undertaken a very robust review during the summer of last year, particularly in light of the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan and some of the new requirements in that. We'd also looked at best practice. A lot of this work was triggered by our new lead, Gareth Lloyd-Richards, who some of you may know, who really has brought a thoroughness and an attention to detail around this work. When the report was published in the autumn, we did actually sense check the review that we'd done in June and July 22. We identified a couple of areas for additional work which we have put into place, and largely those relate to the support for individuals and really clarifying when we do need to undertake an EIA and when we don't. Our work is based around the EIA hub for HEIW. There's a huge amount of resources on there, but that's also supported by hands-on support for teams. So we've done awareness raising, training, but also actually looking to get feedback. And the paper provides you with some quotes from colleagues around HEIW who've really taken advantage of the new approach that we've got to developing EIAs in the organisation. So I think it's fair to say that we've put in place quite extensive support. We feel as though we're pretty exemplar across NHS Wales, and certainly we're using the community of practice for equality leads across NHS Wales to shout and share about some of the work that we've been doing in our organisation. We've got another review in July 23, and it'll be our intention to keep this work under review as we progress. So we were very happy with to accept and to note all of the findings from Audit Wales' report. And I hope that's given you assurance that we are actually taking this work very seriously, and indeed in a number of aspects are leading the way probably in NHS Wales. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, much appreciated. Jill, anything from you, any observations or questions to Julie on the response?
No, thank you, Chair. I think it's a really good piece of work, and it fits with our direction of travel, as Julie said. Very happy to endorse the actions that she's outlined.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tina, anything from you on this?
I concur with Julie because I'm the EDL champion and I attend quite a lot of internal meetings. So yeah, I can see what's been said in demonstration.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, committee is being asked to note the management response to recommendation 4, reviewing public bodies' current approach for conducting equalities impact assessments. I'm sure we're happy to note, and can I thank you, Julie, for the response and for its robustness. It's really good to see this set out in this particular way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Moving back to item 2.3, the Audit Wales progress report. I think we'll take the annual audit report for 22-23 first.
Yeah,
thanks. Thank you.
So the annual audit report introduced today, I'll take it as read. It summarises our work for last year in both financial and performance audit. So there's probably nothing new in it, it just brings it all together. So I'm happy for myself and Alicia to take any questions that don't propose to make through in any detail.
Thanks. Jill, anything on the audit report?
No, only to say that I thought it was a really good report. It was very positive. I know we've worked hard and well with Audit Wales, and just really to, I think, commend both the auditors and officers for achieving such a positive report. I was really pleased to see it.
Thank you, Jill. Tina, anything on the report?
I think it was item 43 where you said the scope to, everyone was saying report the scope to improve performance appraisal, development, PADR compliance rates. This is something that as a board we've asked for a couple of times. So, and I know that there were problems with COVID, but I just wondered whether that's something that the committee should be looking at in terms of the action going forward, because it's not a new thing. I know that we've looked at it, right at the beginning of the year too. So it's a recommendation from the special assessment.
So it's just the captures on the audit tracker, so the auditors will have full sites of how we proceed our activity.
Just a couple of departments that it kicks in, and others are showing its own practice.
Sure. Okay. That's okay. Thank you. The progress report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll copy this and then I'll hand it to Alicia. Probably not going to say much because I think we covered our progress on the audit 2010 to 23 accounts earlier, so I'll pass to Alicia.
So, in terms of performance audit work, so specifically, the review of workforce planning arrangements, so at drafting stage, and when we'll get the draft report out later this summer. It's a bit as usual, highlights the recent good practice exchange activities, so they're online for you to access. in Exhibit 5, highlights and proposals for a recently published NHS national report. So this includes our report on the National Fraud Initiative, which we provided a summary of the messages of Appendix 1. The report makes 3 recommendations, 2 of which are applicable to HAW. With today's paper and HAW response to those recommendations. And also in previous audit updates, we highlighted and provided summaries to 2 other national reports. One that we've already heard from Julie about is the policy impact assessment report. There's also the public sector readiness for net zero for 2030. Version of both of the HAW response to those reports are on today's agenda. I just wanted to say thank you for providing it.
Thank you. If I could just deal with the item of planned work not yet started, so the local work 2023, and the focus of the work is still not being determined. I'm just wondering if there's any further update on that and when we think that will be resolved.
Well, the work is going and we plan for 2023 next week. But in the meantime, some of those could be, for example, we're doing our review workforce planning meetings, and there might be issues that are raised through there that we might have to include. So we'll have to open the that, but we'll
Thanks, Alicia. The next meeting of the committee is on the 6th of April. Have you even a loose draft at this stage as to what the plan will be?
discussions
Can you outline any of your current thinking as to what that might look like, or is it too early? It's too early. So, okay. Tina, anything from your end? Jill's not on. And the answer 315, and I think just in terms of that, the impact of that. I mean, clearly there is some concern around what one do we receive the advice and the organisation the advice that it needs, but I mean, timescales. Do you think we're likely to be further forward by the next meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the next meeting, we will come back and we'll bring our detailed audit plan to the full meeting. In the meantime, if we have an outline plan, we can show that there's members, that would be helpful. Depends how much additional work and how much use that is for in the next meeting, but so then we will look at outline planning and
Okay. Members being asked to note the progress report and the annual audit report for 22-23. So noted. Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues from Audit Wales. Can we move on to item 2.5, the public sector readiness for zero carbon? There's a response for assurance. I'll hand over to you.
Yes, the report sets out the HAW report, the HAW response to Audit Wales, the 5 calls for action that are set out in the sort of as a result of their review into readiness for net carbon. So HIW have drafted a biodiversity and decarbonisation strategy, and we've agreed that and drafted a sustainability action plan that enables implementation of that strategy. So there are 2 aspects of this. There's HIW as an organisation and how we are dealing with our own carbon footprint, but also as a strategic workforce body and how we have, I suppose, a remit in embedding that climate smart education across all of our education and training programmes. So the activity that is being undertaken currently and developed as a future direction of travel is set out in the report. So I wasn't going to go through each aspect in detail, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Tina, any questions from you? A quick question from me. I think the inclusion of the different calls for action, work to make future plans, I think sets out quite an ambitious set of thoughts. This only works, of course, if we have staff buy-in, and I'm not suggesting for 1 second that our staff wouldn't be brought into this, but of course motivating, exciting and involving people can sometimes be a bit challenging. Any particular risks there, or are we finding staff are really quite engaged and enthused by this work?
I think we've got a very sort of enthusiastic and willing green group in the organisation. It is made up of volunteers across the patch, but we've also received a small amount of funding from Welsh Government to, I suppose, undertake some kindness not education. We've offered that across the system, and a number of our staff have been involved in that as well. So I think there is willingness within the organisation to accept and adopt this. And I think if you take a walk around and the grounds and the work that has been done out there, that's as a result of that committee group of people in the green group. And it does feature quite large in everything that we do, even to the extent of that bonding capacity meetings. So, and that's actually something I would present raised. So it is at the forefront of people's minds. It's not just, I suppose, done to tick a box.
Yeah, and it's a cultural shift, isn't it? That's the challenge. That's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure we're happy to receive the report for assurance. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, and sticking with you on item 2.6, the National Fraud Initiative 2022-23, we asked them about the content of the report. Anything you want to raise?
No, not really.
I picked up earlier.
Yeah, we should just mention the, I suppose in the appendix, it just sets out the management response to the two recommendations that were relevant to HAW and the third being deemed not relevant to us. So it is set up in the appendix.
Any queries? No, thank you very much. Committee is being asked to note the contents of the report. Thank you. Item 2.7, the losses and special payments. Again, a report there for the committee to note. Again, Rhiannon, back to you. Thank you.
Sorry, this is open. So this is a regular report that we bring back to the audit committee. And as mentioned previously, this is I suppose a cumulative position. The report is actually as at the end of December. There were 17 cases of overpayment of salary. The total amount overpaid £13.7 thousand, with 7.6 recovered. So as at the end of January, that's actually increased to 8.5 or 8,500 recovered against those. So generally we are able to recover in the amount that is overpaid, but the next report is going to go into a further piece of work that we've undertaken to understand why this is happening and if there is anything that we can tighten up to process.
Thank you. Any questions to Rhiannon on the losses and special payments report, item 2.7? Jill, anything from you?
No, nothing on this, Chair. Just happy that we're doing all the work that we are to minimise the risk, because it was something that the audit committee was concerned about. So happy to see all the actions that are there, and look forward to a report with Nen on.
Yeah, that's the ambition, Jill. So,
yeah.
Tina, anything from you on this item?
No, I've noted the actions that
Yeah, thank you. Okay, members may ask to note the report, which we have. Thank you very much. Just touching on salary overpayments, again, content of the report there for noting item 2.8. Anything else on that, or Martin?
Yeah, thanks. Just a little bit. Just this has been an area of interest to the Audit Assurance Committee over the past few years. It just provides some background video on what we've been doing. Just make a point really, in terms of financial risk, it is relatively small. We paid up £38 million salaries since 2018, and there's 41 people paid by 35,000. But there is an acceptance. There is a administrative burden on this, and it is acceptable when they receive this money. It is an inconvenience, so we do need to try and reduce as much as we can. So since the last audit committee, I met with the HAW people team. I'd like some of the reasons for it, and you can see that the main reason is delays in sending the paperwork essentially. So that's what we try to focus on. I won't go through in detail, but the sort of actions, we're trying to improve information to managers. They know what is needed of them. We're trying to improve how we collect and share the data. So when someone leaves, it's only done once, and relevant people get information. And finally, where necessary, we will target individuals if they're making repeated areas to support them or look at why that's happening. So the audit committee receives regular updates on overpayments, through loss and special payments report, as Rhiannon just said. We're happy to bring any further updates to the committee as requested.
Jill, anything on the salary overpayments?
No, sorry, Chair. I was commenting on that as well. I sort of lost the sound for a while. So yeah, just to say, really pleased that all that work is going on, because I realise it's only a small financial risk. I understand that, Martin, but it's about process, isn't it, and making sure, because if we've got processes that aren't quite watertight, then it could be more than a small risk. So pleased to see all the work that's going on.
I agree with what you said. It might be a small amount, but when it's an accident, it's not.
Thank you. So the committee has been asked to note the contents of the report. So thank you to colleagues for that. Item 2.9, the procurement compliance report. And there's a note there for assurance. And
So we've got Janine Priest with us. So
brilliant.
Janine is our procurement lead, and I'm sure we'll be able to pick this one up for us.
Good morning, Janine.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, room there. Apologies, there's some issues with the sound as it comes through, so I do apologise if I ask you to repeat any questions that you may have. So hopefully you've all had sight of the report there that was compiled with activity that's taken place from the 16th of September through to the 19th of January. And members are asked to report issue. So contains detail of a number of activities that have taken place around single tender actions, single quotation actions, as well as some contract extensions that have been undertaken. And also there are some file notes there recorded which are non-compliant activities. So the appendices which adjoins goes into that finer detail then around those single quotations and single tender actions. So as you can see from Appendix 1, a number of the single quotation and single tender actions have been around where this is a single provider and there is no option to go to an alternate currently. There are some notes across some of them around if there's anything that can be done in the future to engage with the market and grow the marketplace as well. So procurement will actively engage and see what we can do with regards to market growth for those future needs also. There are matters as well that are recorded around interim measures that were required whilst an all Wales solution, so that is SQA 009. That was undertaken with the support of digital colleagues there with HAW, and this is whilst the All Wales solution is being put together, and an additional interim measure was required with the incumbent provider. And then also as well there was an unfortunate delay with Welsh Government approvals for a procurement exercise and contract award, which was going too close to the deadline of award, and therefore there was a need to extend the agreement with the incumbent, and that was undertaken via an STA 360. So there's also the ward one that I draw to your attention, 0432, where we were scoping out the requirements and looking towards putting the procurement live. However, new information came to light that potentially we should be looking to broaden that procurement to cover a lot more expanded areas, and as such a decision was made to extend the current arrangement via a single tender action to allow that specification to be broadened further to allow us to capture a greater number of potential refugee doctors and asylum seekers that could deliver services there within Wales and fall under that agreement. The appendices also goes on to describe extends. These are featured on page 3 of Appendix 1, and the 4 extensions that are detailed there were all captured within the original procurement exercise and contract award. So this was HEIW exercising that ability to extend the contract for a further period. Page 4 of the appendices then describes a number of extensions of contract awards where these matters were not captured within the original award, and these were due to additional works, additional remedial works and unforeseen works that were required as a result of matters occurring post-award, and these would have been unforeseen at the time when the specification was drafted. And as you will note from the appendices, these are nominal figures in comparison to the total quantum of the original awards, and therefore were in line with regulatory requirements and allowable, and with regards regulatory requirements. From page 5 downwards of the appendices, we then capture the file notes that have been created during that 4-month period, and these acknowledge, as I said earlier, non-compliant activities. So this is activity whereby a procurement exercise has not been undertaken, nor a waiver approval request under an STA or SQA. And as you can see from some of the descriptions there as to the reasoning for those file notes, was that originally the intent and the requirement was considered to be below 5k, as occurred on a number of them, but for multiple different reasons it exceeded that 5k point. But at the point when it did, there wasn't sufficient timeline to allow for a procurement exercise and a compliant process to be undertaken, and therefore this is captured as a file note. You'll also note that there are 3 file notes captured there, whereby ordinarily they would have fallen into an SQA STA. However, they came in too late and therefore were classified as retrospective, and under the standard financial instructions, retrospective SQAs, STAs are not acceptable, and therefore they are recorded here as a file note. Did you have any questions, Chair?
Thank you, Janine. That's really helpful. Some of the sound dipped in and out for a little bit, but I think we've got most of the gist of the update. So thank you very much for that. Can I just go back to Appendix 2 and those items in relation to some areas of expenditure for the medical division? There's a reference there, rather an explanation that we were informed that the service basically were unaware of the need to engage with procurement for an event over £5,000 in value. I'm just wondering if you could explain a little bit further, because obviously one would expect that when colleagues are involved in arranging events and certainly incurring expenditure for whatever those matters might be, they would be aware of the procurement requirements. It just concerned me a little bit that colleagues said they were unaware of the need to engage with procurement for an event over 5,000. Is there anything? Janine, can you ask? Did you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, it is a little the sound is not the best today, and I'm also not even sure if you can see me on the video, so I apologize for that. So yes, indeed, this is a concerning matter, Chair, and we wholeheartedly agree with that. And in fact, we are accelerating now a new session of procurement training in collaboration with finance colleagues that we are hopeful to roll out in the forthcoming weeks. And hopefully all of the individuals that have notarized such knowledge that is lacking there around procurement, etc., will most definitely be invited to come along, and we will reinforce that position around regulatory requirements and standard financial instructions. So hopefully such a reasoning will be a thing of the past, I would hope, Chair, in the near future.
Sorry, Rhiannon on there, Martin, please be then. Tina.
So we are currently looking at whether that £5,000 limit is appropriate for each HW, because I think the issue is that people's expectation is that it will be below that, and then something is added and it creeps in excess of that. So I think if we are considering whether that should be increased to £10,000, which would mean a lot of that would disappear. I think we also, late last week, I was involved in an exercise with a previous procurement team before COVID started to look at whether we needed some sort of conferencing agreement. So we explored whether we could have a framework agreement with Crown Commercial Services that would mean that they actually sort of provide that service for us in helping arrange those conferences, which would take out this individual basis of arranging them. So obviously that was paused because of COVID a couple of years ago, but I think it is something that as that activity increases that we need to pick up again. So that would take out a lot of these sort of individual issues with procurement and conferencing arrangements.
Tina?
I just wonder if I could have a little bit more detail with regards to Appendix 2 around pharmacy, where it talks about advanced level Masters in Clinical Pharmacy Practice. And we've listed a couple of universities in the UK. One says Belfast University. There are two universities in Belfast, Queen's and Ulster. So it would be University of Ulster. So it'd be good to know why and why we're going to Belfast for that. There are practical placements in Sunderland, which are again, so I can't understand why the single tender of this issue is a single tender if we're also using, is that John Moores University? What's the significance of having to go to these universities when there are different universities, and have we gone through the correct tender?
So my recollection of these, there was something very specific offered by each institution that meant that they were the only provider. But I think you obviously questioned that at the time and said, is this, could this be subject to wider competition, and why would it have to be that institution? But we can get further detail on that.
And which university is it in Belfast? Is it Queen's or is it University of Oxford?
Yeah,
so it would be helpful to have that. And when we talk about Liverpool University, the correct name of the university so that we can cross-reference that with all pharmaceutical, so that we know exactly what the specifics are about those universities providing that. Thanks.
Jill, anything from you on procurement?
No, I think we've made, as an audit committee, we've commented, I think, a lot on the single tender actions, and I'm aware that Rhiannon and the finance team are doing a huge amount of work, because I share your oh, sorry, something gone wrong.
We're still here. Jill, you're on mute.
The screen just flashed to Janine, sorry. So I think we just watched this space, really. I was really disappointed to see the medical issues, and hope that those are a one-off situation, and that we progress really with the training and development for everybody, because we are a different organisation, and I think that's something that hasn't necessarily been appreciated, but I know that the procurement team are doing their best now to really help and assist. So yeah, so disappointing in a way, but I'm glad that there's loads of work going on. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, thanks, Jill, much appreciated. Okay, unless there are any further questions, can I ask committee just to note the contents of the report for assurance. Thank you. Item 2.10, regrettably, Gareth Lavin is not able to be with us this morning. So instead of perhaps running through any issues in respect of the reports to committee, I'm proposing to defer those items for further consideration. So we won't deal with item 2.10 this morning. If I can just move to item 2.11, information governance and information management reports, a key issues report. Dan, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch yn iawn i chi cadeirydd. Papur ydy hon ar grŵp corfforaeth gwybodaeth a reolaeth gwybodaeth, IGIM. Papur i'w nodi ydy hon, sicrwydd. Mae papur yn crynhoi y gwaith a'r cofnodion cyfarfod diwethaf ac yn cael ar Fymedr 20 Tachwedd. Mae papur hefyd yn amlethlu'r gwaith amaethwyd dros y cyfnod adrodd ynglyn â ceisiadau ar gyfer y rhyddid gwybodaeth. Felly papur i'w nodi ydy hon. Diolch yn fawr.
Any questions? You're happy with the update report? Jill, any question from you on the governance and information management report?
No, none at all, Chair.
Jill, the committee being asked to note the contents of the report for assurance, and it's a robust update. So no questions from me as chair. So thank you, Dan. So noted. Item 2.12, the corporate risk register. Documents there for colleagues to consider, and I'll hold it over to Dan first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is a paper on the corporate register. At this point in time, there are 12 on the register. So 1 red, 8 amber, and 3 there are 3 new risks to report on. 2 of these
Health Education England
have to do with combining NHS Digital, and the 3rd risk is about the education.
3 green risks
is this number 12, risk 13, which is the midwifery course at University of South Wales, and risk 16, which is the Health Education England and NHS Digital. So we're asking the committee to note the report and agree that we remove the 3 green risks from the register. Thank you.
Any questions to David on the corporate risk register? Tina, anything from you? One observation from me, it's not really a request for how this is reported, but what is useful with this report is understanding, as you set out, how certain risks alter between the last reporting period and the current reporting period, whether they materially have got more challenging or become slightly easier to deal with by virtue of their risk score. I was wondering whether perhaps at some point, if we were doing some reflective work looking back across the year, whether we could look at each risk and see what happens to that risk in the course of the year, whether they alter at all in the course of the year, whether they increase in riskiness or whether they become less risky, and maybe to outline the reasons for the change, just to try and capture it as a as a look back. I think that would be quite useful for us to have, because having it from one reporting period to the current one is really useful, because the committee does have to understand between the last meeting and this one what has happened in our risk profile and how we're responding to any particular challenges, or how things are improving. But I think sometimes it would be good to get that slightly longer view, perhaps over 12 months, because there'll be some risks, no doubt, that will probably vary a bit in the course of the year. Others remain fairly static. But it'd be just good to get that picture, perhaps as a one-off, just to give us that indication.
Good, thank you. We do provide a overview of the annual report, but that focuses on the red risks.
Yes, yeah. But I think with the reporting, the way this is done really is incredibly helpful to committee. But I think just as it will just give us quite an interesting perspective looking back at a 12-month period, just to see each of the risks in the context of how they shifted in the course of the year, the reason why. Jill, anything on the corporate risk register?
No, thanks, Chair. I think the only.
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. Yeah.
All right. Sorry. The only thing I did think was we're taking it out of sequence. I think I'm not sure if this is right, David. We've already taken it to the board, haven't we? Before the audit committee. Is that just the timing, how it worked out?
It's just the timing. So the paper that goes to the board, the cover paper identifies the changes that were made to the corporate risk register since it last went to the board, which was in November. So this paper looks at when it last went to the audit committee. I think they're more or less identical as it happens on this cycle. But the audit committee has got a specific role here, that it's the audit committee that authorises removing green risks from the corporate risk register. So that's what we're asking the audit committee to do today. But certainly it's not that cycle at all. This is the regular approach that we have.
I just wanted to make sure we got the same one, that the board had seen the same one, that's all. So yeah, okay.
It is the same version on this occasion, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Tina, any?
I was going to comment that I find this really helpful in terms of the dates, and we just did say it. From the perspective of the committees that we have, where they're relevant to that committee, it's useful from the board perspective to cross-reference that. So maybe what we're saying would be helpful, because as the chair of the Education Commissioning, I often go back to these reports to review, especially when there's a paper relating to, let's say, the military unit, for example. It's important to see whether that risk is altering in relation to the discussions that are taking place in education.
Yep.
So from that perspective, it would be helpful.
Okay, committee is being asked to note the contents of the report for assurance, but also to approve the removal of 3 green risks, namely risk 12, 13 and 16 from the corporate risk register. Colleagues happy to approve their removal?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Item 2.13, the audit recommendations tracker.
So this is the report on the tracking system recommendation. At the moment, there are 28 recommendations. Of these, 19 of them are internal audits. And from that, there are 2 red, 15.
O ran argymhellion archwiliad allanol, ar hyn o bryd mae yna 8 argymhelliad, ac mae 20 yn oren a 6 yn wyrth. Felly, da ni gofyn i'r pwyllgor i nodi'r adroddiad a hefyd cymeradwyr bod yn tynnu'r argymhellion gwyrdd oddi ar
recommendations of the tracking system as they have been completed.
Any questions to David on the report? Jill, I can do you first.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for this. It's always a really helpful document, I think, and really good in terms of governance. There are a few reds on there. I think I picked up the translation properly, but it did go in and out. But there are a few reds on there for that we'll need to keep an eye on at the next audit committee, I think. But happy to take the greens off, Chair, because otherwise it becomes very, very unwieldy, the tracker.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Tina, anything from you? Yeah, if I just echo Jill's point about how helpful this exercise is, and it's good to see it laid out in this particular way. It does give the committee the assurance that it needs in how we're delivering this, because clearly keeping a track on this can be a bit of a challenge, but clearly it is. It's setting it out like this is helpful to you, no doubt, and helpful to us as a committee. So the committee is being asked to note the report, consider the progress, but importantly to approve the recommendations on the audit tracker that have been assessed as completed and therefore given a green rating are withdrawn from the tracker to make David's life and everybody else's life a lot easier when it comes to monitoring and reporting. So I'm committee happy to approve.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, super. If I can move on to item 2.14, the evaluation of committee effectiveness, the approval of self-assessment questionnaire. David, back to you. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly, papur ydy hon ar ein adolygiad blynyddol o effeithlogrwydd y Pwyllgor. Mae'r holiadur holl bwysig yn ôl mi'r adroddiad.
This important questionnaire is attached to the report, and the purpose of this paper is to ask the committee to note the questionnaire and ask that we can start assessing. Thank you very much.
Jill, any particular comments or questions in relation to the committee effectiveness review, and in particular the document that's attached to Appendix 1?
No, thanks, Chair.
You're comfortable as chair with the evaluation questions that have been included in the questionnaire?
Yeah, I think I'm more comfortable with this one because we've got the ones from the centre filled in. The only thing for the future is whether we go more towards the board questionnaire, David, which gives like 4 options, which gives more shades of grey rather than just a yes or no, because sometimes it is an in-between, isn't it? So just something we might think about for all the questionnaires for the future.
I'm not entirely sure the work of the Audit and Assurance Committee should be shady, but I get the perspective. Tina, any thoughts on the questionnaire that makes been boxes?
I think Joe's last point is consistency with the other committees and the Education Committee, and I just wondered whether if you've got an equal balance of 4, whether you should have a look at through just to have, you know, 5th one. Otherwise people just there's always questions about it, so I just wonder what is best practice and maybe take that in.
But in the meantime, if committee is asked, if committee is happy to approve the contents of the review document, in particular questions that have now been set out for colleagues to answer. Yeah, thank you very much. Item 2.15, the forward work programme for 2023-24. There's a plan there which members are being asked to approve. Before doing so, I can ask David just to any comments?
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Dim llawer i'w ychwanegu o bod mae'r papur amlygu rhagwaith Pwyllgor ar gyfer nesaf. Mae o'n gofyn i'r Pwyllgor ystyried rhagwaith
and to approve the document. Thank you.
I did send some comments to David last week, just in terms of the accounts deadline. I think some dates not quite right now, so it's happy to send some amendments to about what's in on the deadline, I guess.
So putting back to your point earlier about how meetings might need to shift in order to
Absolutely, yeah,
accommodate
so
the
the
schedule.
may push it back a little bit as well because of the techniques, so.
So can we get that done fairly quickly and recirculated to the committee just for notice?
Do we have those for, I mean, the
No,
forward,
no,
I guess the point to make about the forward programme, which I said earlier, is that it's not set in concrete, it's a guide, and we do obviously amend the agendas to reflect what's in front of us. I don't think we've got the dates in concrete yet with regards to, are we in that position yet?
I would say not, no.
But we'll obviously amend them to reflect the feedback we get from them.
I was going to raise, sorry, on the website, there are future committee dates, for example, so there's an audit committee scheduled for 13th of July, is that not in our programme?
The dates of the committees are confirmed, but what we're anticipating now is that we'll need to amend. So our current forward work programme is based on the original anticipation of when we would be going through the audit process. So given the conversations the President comes up from both sides of that, it looks like we may well need to amend the dates that we take those papers to the committees. They also need to amend the dates of the committees that we specifically put in to deal with the annual audit, but we're not just it's
Okay, so it might be the 13th of July, and that might be okay for the final.
Bit of luck, really, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think it obviously we'll have a chat with the next couple of weeks, but I think that could work. So yeah, it would just be the draft accounts. So you work on the original deadlines anyway.
But if we need to shift the date, then we need to shift the date that way. So we need to come with yeah, the draft. Yeah. Okay, can I ask members to approve the Audit and Assurance Committee forward work programme for 2023-24, notwithstanding the fact that there may be some, or likely be some variation in some of the dates just to accommodate the audit schedule. But we can do that. I'm sure members can be updated as and when those dates, if those dates do in fact change. But in the meantime, I can just approve the report.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Part 3 of this morning's agenda for information. There is nothing to update colleagues on this morning. But moving on to part 4, I don't believe there's any other business this morning of which I've not been notified. And if I can just confirm that the date of the next meeting is scheduled for the 6th of April here at 10 AM. So unless there are any other matters, I can draw the open meeting to a conclusion. Thank you all very much indeed for attending. Very much appreciated. Thank you, and that concludes our meeting.